go to the warehouse.
G'day, and welcome to part 2 of tonight's extraordinaire look at Asian whiskey here at Sydney Whisky Forum. My name is Scott Fitzsimons, and I look after all the whiskey and spirits here at the Oak Barrel. So all the good decisions are mine, but also all the bad decisions are mine as well. But luckily tonight we're having another good decision here with the distillery that is very close to the Oak Barrel and very close to my heart. We have a bunch of people watching from around Australia in various different places on Facebook, on YouTube, on the Oak Barrel website, with some samples that we broke down and sent up to go really in depth into Paul John whiskey and Indian whiskey tonight. But even if you didn't manage to get one of those samples that have sold out, feel free to watch along, put something in the samples and say good day to everyone. We have a whole crew of people here tonight, which is fantastic. The least important person here, I'll introduce first, which is obviously Andrew Milne from South Trade. Nice bloke, but obviously definitely the least important. I want to say a quick good day to Gopi from the distillery, coming in loud and clear, who's going to talk to us about a lot of different things. To Pankaj, who, as you can see, might be dropping in and out of reception because he is in the warehouse, as we can see there with the racking behind him, which is going to be fascinating to have a look at in a little bit. And of course, someone who if you've been to Oak Barrel tastings in the past and been to places like Dram Fest in Christchurch, to some of those ones you might be familiar with, Michael de Souza, Master Distiller Extraordinaire from the distillery. So gentlemen, thank you for joining me, and how are you?
All well. How are you, Scott?
I'm excellent. It's 7:30 in Sydney here. It's definitely whiskey o'clock. How are you? What time is it where you are at the moment?
It's 3 p.m. In the afternoon.
Summer hours, it's good clock off time.
It is. No, actually, we are in monsoon. It's been raining continuously here. For a change today, we don't have rains, but otherwise we are in monsoon.
Excellent. It's been a little while since we've been in the same room and shared a few drams together. Obviously, the world is doing what it's doing at the moment. But I keep seeing new things from Paul John. The company and the distillery keeps moving forward. Just as a start, now, what does the past 18 months look like for you guys? Has there been, how have you? Did you have to shut down at all, or did you manage to work through?
Okay. Fortunately, we don't have much to complain. During the previous pandemic season, we had to shut down the distillery for a couple of months. But having said that, we got into manufacturing sanitizers because we wanted to do some community service. So we were continuously making sanitizer for a couple of months, and again we started our own. The regular operations. But the second wave, we were fortunate that we were not affected much. So as of now, the distillery is running at full capacity.
Excellent. That's great news to hear. And it's been a pretty horrific time for everyone, but particularly India copped it really bad for a little while. Then that was heartbreaking to see. But for the purposes of tonight, we have the thing that unites all of humanity and brings everyone together and makes forget our worries for a little while is excellent single malt whiskey. So I'm quite familiar with the brand and having worked with the brand for a long time. But you may want to give a quick intro into Paul John, where it came from, and I'm sure there's some people still out there, as we see with Australian whiskey sometimes. Oh, you make a whiskey in Australia, do you? There's probably some people that still think, oh, you make whiskey in India, do you?
Sure. Okay. For the people who have joined us today, I welcome to today's Paul John presentation. Thank you for taking out time and being here today. Today, during the course of presentation, I will be talking about the distillery, the brand, and of course, the whiskey making. Paul John started way back in 1992. Today we are India's fifth largest in terms of volumes. In 1992, we started with the manufacturing of blended whiskies. We have a flagship brand called Original Choice, which is sold in India and also abroad in a few countries. This particular brand is selling close to 1.5 million cases every month. That is 15 lakh cases.
Michael definitely said a month there. That wasn't a year. That wasn't ever. That was a month. Like, this is a whiskey that is hugely popular. Hugely popular.
Yes. This is one of the brand, and we have close to 11 different brands when it comes to blended whiskies. And also we make wines. We have our own vineyards, and we produce a brand called Big Banyan. This is made in Bangalore. And the third one is Paul John Single Malt, of course. This operation started way back in 2006. We are situated on the western coast of India, the place called Goa. Goa is known for tourism, and Goa has got wonderful tropical climate. The construction of the distillery started in 2006. It took almost 2 years to complete the entire construction activities. And in 2009, we started our first distillation. Paul John is made out of 100% Indian ingredients. We use Indian 6-row grain, which is grown on the northern part of India. The states like Uttar Pradesh, Rajasthan, Haryana, Punjab, etc. We don't have the malting facility. The malting is done again in the north. Once the malting is done, we get the ready-made malt grain for the process. Every day I use close to 8 metric tons of malted grain to produce 4,000 liters of new make spirit. Once distilled, the new make goes into wooden casks. As on today, we have close to 25,000 casks of various sizes. If you look at the inventory, 95% of the inventory is ex-bourbon cask. The remaining is alternative so-called casks that are used for finishes. It can be Portuguese wine cask, Spanish wine cask, virgin oak, etc. We follow the same international regulations, wherein in India we have to measure liquid for minimum of 3 years to be classified as single malt. However, most of our expressions are bottled after 5 years. So we have four different warehouses, one underground and 3 above the ground level. So underground cellar gives us more elegant, easy drinkable whiskies, wherein the other 3 warehouses we get more bolder character ones, because the underground cellar is much cooler, less humid, much man movement. From the underground cellar we get more elegant whiskies, whereas the other 3 warehouses, wherein the cask is directly exposed to the environment, we get more bolder whiskies. If you taste our expressions, most of our expressions are minerally in character, because Goa has got wonderful tropical climate. Salt is in the air. During the course of interaction, whiskey tend to absorb a lot of saltiness, and the whiskey becomes more minerally in character. So coming back to the whiskies, we have whiskies for all the palates. We have unpeated, we have slightly peated, and also we have heavily peated whiskies. Our biggest selling brand is known as Nirvana. Nirvana is for those who are in transition from blended whiskies to single malts. As you know, India is the biggest consumer of whiskey in the world. Um, most of the drinkers, they prefer blended whiskies because as per the Indian palate, we like everything sweet, soft and elegant. So people prefer blended whiskies because A, it is softer. Of course, it is bottled at 40%. So they feel it is soft and easy drinkable. So Nirvana is made for those who are in transition from blended whiskies to single malts.
Just quickly, Michael, I might encourage anyone who's got a Nirvana in front of them to pour a little bit now, as I've just done.
So the warehouse walls, have they got darker over time? Because it's quite common that I've seen this where there's beautiful warehouses.
Yeah, this is natural. This is natural. That fungus called Bedonia, which due to alcohol, this fungus formation.
It's the mark of a well-used warehouse.
Mark of the warehouse. Exactly.
Are you, Michael? Are you very proud when the warehouse gets darker? Or do you get proud about that? I know some distillers do.
Of course, I mean, because if it was even more darker because of the rains, most of the fungus has gone off. Over a period of time, again, you will see it accumulates. Maybe
Excellent,
during the course of tour, Pankaj will be explaining you more about this. So moving on to Nirvana. Nirvana is the only expression which is chill filtered among Paul John portfolio. This is bottled at 40%. It's a 3-year-old whiskey matured in ex-bourbon cask. The whiskies are drawn from the third fill casks.
Third fill.
And third fill cask and chill filter. The first and second fill normally goes for the flagships and the limited releases. For Nirvana, always it is third fill because Nirvana has to be lighter and more easy drinkable.
Just a question coming in from the chat here. Luke asks, where do the barrels typically come from? Do you have set suppliers that you work with, or do you grab from a few different sources?
Okay, when we started in 2008 and 9, we started sourcing from different distilleries, from Jack Daniels, Maker's Mark, Heaven Hill, Smith Bowman, Buffalo Trace, Four Roses, everywhere. Then later I started buying only from Jack Daniels because, as you know, Jack Daniels is one of the largest selling whiskies. So they cannot afford to keep their whiskies for longer time in the cask. So they normally dump the cask every 2.5 years. So for me, it's more useful because I get more extraction from the newer casks. So I started preferring casks from Jack Daniels. Until 2017. As you know now, we are part of Sazerac. So most of our cask is from Buffalo Trace. So I would say now, if you look at the inventory, 30% of the cask is from Buffalo Trace.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, fascinating. And have you seen much of a change in the whiskies as they mature because of that change?
Yes, I mean because not much of a change, but Buffalo Trace, of course, their wood management is very, very superior. So we get best of the casks. So we get selected casks from Buffalo Trace.
And are you still picking for casks that are young whiskies in them? Because obviously, Buffalo Trace is 7-8 years roughly. So you're picking younger bourbon brands versus actual Buffalo Trace barrels.
Exactly. So I'm using the younger barrels that are being used for younger whiskies, and also we are trying out few new things. We are maturing our single malts in Vela casks, which is a wheat whiskey. and also in some Pappy Van Winkle casks.
Okay, you heard it here first. Pappy Van Winkle, Paul John. That's can I put my request in straight away, Milne? I'll take a couple of pallets of that. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
This is my first. Yeah. Moving on before Andrew says I can't have any. This is my first stab at Nirvana. I haven't tried this before, and it's a really raw and honest version of Paul John. It's quite bright, but there's big popcorn and cereal notes on the nose, and then in that entry palate, a little bit of like Werther's Originals or bubblegum at the end as well. But this is could be dangerously drinkable. You could drink a bit of this.
Yes, I mean, this is bottled at lower ABV, that is 40%. It is chill filtered. On the nose, it is very, very sweet and creamy. A lot of citrus notes, sweet lime, lemon. It has got honey, a lot of tropical fruity notes, a high on malt. On the palate, delivery is very, very sweet and creamy and soft. Again, you get a lot of fruitiness and citrus notes. Though it is chill filtered, still the finish is creamy and long.
Yeah.
Yeah, for third fill barrels, typically when you talk about that in Scotland, you're getting very light, very dry styles of whiskies, and that's, as you say, you've got the body on that. No bumping of ABV. That's superb.
Exactly. This is 3-year-old from the third fill casks. I mean, I think for the 3-year-old whiskey, this is very good.
It's excellent. So this is relatively new to Australia, is it Milne, Nirvana?
Literally a month, 6 weeks. But it's about I've lost all track of times now. It's each week I don't know what's going on, but I think I'd say 6 to 8 weeks. I think this landed here.
So, Brand, so those of you drinking with us tonight, you're amongst the first in the country to try this. Yeah. I want to do a shout out because I think we've got the great job here of sitting at desks and drinking. I want to do a quick shout out again to Pankaj, who was doing an exceptional job doing there and got some distillery workers is on there. So this is obviously we spoke about the black in the warehouse there, as we just lose that for a second potentially. You mentioned you had three warehouses above ground and one below ground. Is Nirvana drawn from a mixture of all of them?
Yes, I mean when I started, we had only one warehouse that was underground. Then gradually our inventory went up and we constructed the remaining warehouses. Today, except for classic and some of the special releases, including cask finishes, rest of the liquid comes from the warehouse, which is above the ground level. The classic and the rest of the special releases are from the underground cellar, including Oloroso.
Yeah. Well, should we move on to the next whiskey in the lineup, which I believe is the Brilliance, which is one of the very original Paul John whiskies from the single malt range, I believe.
Correct. So we have 4 different categories when it comes to Paul John single malts. The first one is the entry level, which is Nirvana. Then comes the flagship, bottled at 46%, non-chill filtered. We have 3 different expressions in flagship. First one is Brilliant. The second one is Edited. Third one is the Bowl. Then comes Select Cask range. We have Classic and Peated Select Cask, which is from the ex-bourbon casks. Then we have Pedro Jimenez and Oloroso finish, the Spanish wine cask. These are the 4 Select Cask whiskies. Then we have special releases, including our Zodiac series. First one was Kanya. The second one was Mithuna. Then also we have commemorative editions like Mars Orbiter. So the second expression is Brilliance. Brilliance is non-peated single malt from ex-bourbon cask. For flagships, I use liquid ranging from 5 to 6 years from the first and second fills. So Brilliance is the mix of first and second fill, non-chill filtered, bottled at 46%, ages between 5 to 6 years. Again, on the nose, lot of honey and tropical fruity notes. A lot of honey, in fact, and also it is citrusy. You have breakfast marmalade, peach, pineapple, banana. You have a lot of honey. It's slightly nuttier. You have peanut and hazelnut coming through.
That's one thing I've always found about the Paul John Spirit is that nuttiness,
Exactly.
and that oiliness and that sort of big thing. And we did bottle a Paul John single cask back in 2016, which feels like a long time ago. And I remember falling in love with this particular cask because of that. So what is it about the Paul John Spirit that creates that nuttiness, that peanut, that macadamia oil thing that comes through?
Okay, this comes from one is, of course, the ingredient. We use 6-row Indian grain. If you see the difference between the 6-row and the 2-row Indian grain, that the 6-row contains higher amount of tannins because of larger husk content. So you get the nuttiness from the husk of the grain, and also from the barrels. Here the extraction is much higher, so you tend to get more nuttiness from the casks. Having said that, sorry, Andy.
So I was going to say, it's from what I've seen on 6-row, is obviously the way someone described it is 2-row barley literally grows like that. So say that the center of me is the stem, and your barleys go there and there and there and there and there and there, and they're the same sizes. Whereas 6-row, you've got 3 or 4 elements that are one size, and then two that are smaller. So you're working with this big husks and little husks, and so sorting that as a consistent sort of level is much harder, which gives you that more husk character. Am I right?
No, I mean, if you see the composition, if you see the grain, if you see the size of the grain, the Indian grain is much smaller compared to the European grain or the 2-row barley. So if it's like using a barrel and a hogshead, wherein the liquid to wood ratio in hogshead is much higher. In barrel, it is low, right? So the husk content the ratio of husk content is larger when it comes to Indian grain. So the husk contains tannins, and tannin imparts more bite or more flavor to the liquid. So,
Michael, telling Andy that he was wrong, you made me a very, very happy man tonight. I'm a very happy person.
No. I mean, Andy he's.
So I can take it.
Yeah, but I think so that's a really big differential about Paul John that we should probably point out at this point is it's not just a flavor thing, but 6-row barley it's harder to ferment. You get less yield out of it than you would in 2-row barley, less physical liquid.
Yes, again, because the Indian grain, that is 6-row, contains the low amount of carbohydrate. So when you convert into alcohol, you tend to get less yield. So this is one of the major difference between the 2-row and the 6-row. 2-row high on the carbohydrates and less on protein, which is opposite to the 6-row. 6-row contains higher amount of protein, less of carbohydrate. So most of the Scotch whiskies, the new make, they draw at 65 to 66%. wherein our draw ends at 63%. So we don't get higher than 63% ABV in our final draw.
I think it shows just in the texture. You know, the word creamy, I think, has been thrown around tonight already, but that oiliness, and you know, even putting the flavor of nuttiness to a side for a second, that oiliness, it's such a joy to drink these whiskies because you can just sit on them for so long. You know, we're only at 46%. We're not at crazy levels of alcohol, and it just, you get all that weight and feeling coming through, which is, you know, I think is really, really important for you know, for Paul John and why we love him.
Yeah, exactly. See, you know, Andy, and Scott, you all know that every region has its own pros and cons. You know, Goa being warmer climatic conditions, and wherein you know, it has got water in the air, there is more humidity here, so we lose more alcohol and less water. So what happens is, year on year, the ABV drops down drastically. So so for us, it works well because end of the day, when you reduce the alcohol, we have to add very less water. So, for example, you know, Amrut, they are situated in Bangalore, wherein their ABV raises year on year from 63, it raises to 67 by, you know, end of 5 years. So for them to reduce, they need more water. So when you say more water, you also diluting the flavors.
Yeah, that's
since
really,
we add less water.
yeah. That's fascinating. I mean, how much in volume would you lose a year in pure volume? 5% of your cask a year?
We lose close to 8%.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. So we're unlikely to see a 25-year-old at some point then.
So we have just crossed. I mean, you know, when we started, our target was 10 years. Today we have 12-year-old whiskies in our warehouses. When, you know, if you see if you taste the whiskey, which is still not woody, it's healthy, you know. So I think we can go up to 15 years without any problem with respect to the flavor profile. But again, I mean, since we lose a lot of alcohol, we have to take a call on that.
Yeah.
And how much alcohol are you losing year by year?
Year on year, we lose. I mean, if you minus the, so we lose close to 3%.
I'm right thinking in Australia the ABV increases over time, Scott?
Depends where you are. There's, just like as we're going to look at some of the warehouses that Pankaj is doing an excellent job of, you know, there's some certain places in Tasmania where they can be pretty steady. But if you're, you know, maturing whiskey in the up northern Queensland or in, you know, northern WA, or in, you know, country New South Wales, you definitely are going up a couple of percentage points in alcohol each year. But just like India, Australia, and this is why I love talking to people in India about whiskey. There's so many similarities with both big countries with different climates at different parts of the country, and that plays different elements. So it's fascinating that, you know, you mentioned Amrut up in Bangalore. They've got a different way of doing things than you do, and it results in things just because of where you are in the climate that it is.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Should we move on to whiskey number 3? And can I just point out, that's a $90 whiskey in Australian terms. I don't like talking about price in whiskey. You should try a whiskey if you like it, then go look at the price. But that is a $90, you know, Australian market whiskey, which is incredible value for what you get in the flavour and the texture. But let's move up to the classic, shall we? The classic Cellar cask, which has always probably been my favourite of the lineup for the past 5 years.
Mm-hmm. Okay, classic again. It's an unpeated whiskey from ex-bourbon cask, from the underground, only from the underground cellar, from the first and second fills. Age is in between 6 to 7 years. Non-chill filtered, bottled at 55%. The earlier whiskeys, both Nirvana and Brilliance, both were easy drinkable. Classic, again, it's more complex, on the nose, lot of honey, tropical fruity notes, lot of citrus. It is chocolatey, it is creamy.
And you're dead right. It's almost like biting into a chocolate orange or something like that. You've got that milk chocolate element with that underlying citrus.
Citrus notes.
And I'm going to bring up onto the screen. You mentioned this all comes from the underground warehouse, but Pankaj is doing an exceptional job holding the camera. There's no rest for him as he's having to stand up and walk around. What am I looking at now? Is it this, presume, is the entry to one of the above ground warehouses?
Yes, exactly. This particular warehouse has 6,200 casks stacked up to 15 meters in height. There are 15 different tiers. All are ex-bourbon casks. So most of the flagship extractions, including Brilliance, Gold, and Editor, are from this particular warehouse.
Yeah, brilliant. And do you rotate these barrels at all? And whose poor job is that to climb up to the top? I'm scared of heights, so I'm even getting nervous just looking at it.
Okay, we don't swap the barrel because we are in Goa. Goa has got warmer climatic conditions. We have only 3 seasons, that is hot, hottest, and hotter, and hottest. So the 3 seasons we have. So the whiskey maturation happens throughout the year, as in, there is no rest at all. The interaction is quite rapid throughout the day and night, so we need not swap the casks.
Yeah. And so you mentioned at the very start in the intro, there's differences to the whiskies matured above ground and underground. The one we're on right now, the classic, that's matured underground. So,
yes.
What is it a slower maturation because the temperature is more constant, or what's the dynamic going on here?
Okay, since the underground cellar is much cooler, so the extraction of the woodiness is much lower. As you know that the cask has got hundreds of flavor compounds. These flavor compounds react differently at different temperature. So from the underground cellar, the extraction of wood compound is much lower compared to the upper warehouse. And also, classic is bottled after 6 years. So when I say 6 years, it is equivalent to 20 years in Scotland. So you can understand the amount of extraction after 20 years. So this is one of the reasons I prefer the whiskey from the underground. So that classic is basically the elegant whiskey. It's very fruity. It's citrusy, lot of honey. So if you take the same liquid from the upper warehouse, you find more whiskey. You find more vanillic, and more woodier. It will have the oaky character.
Okay, so I was wondering where we were going there with Pankaj.
So we've just come through the warehouse. Through the reception. It's a beautiful reception.
Correct. Now Pankaj is getting inside the underground cellar.
So I mean, this must have cost when you set up, obviously you mentioned from about 92 John Distilleries has been going, but the Paul John, the single malt element, was from about 2006. Did you have to build all this, or was this already there used for something else?
Yes, we had to build because prior to 2006, none of us had any experience in single malt making. So we had to think differently. So what I decided was to create 2 different environment conditions within the premises. So at least from one warehouse we would. Our thinking was at least from one warehouse we would get better liquid. So, but of course we ended up getting good liquid from every warehouses. So that was the plan.
Yeah. And that's why you told Mr. Paul John that you needed to just build more and more.
Of course. I mean, today we have 25,000. We are adding up 45 additional casks, 45,000 additional casks in over a 5 years time.
Yeah, it's fascinating. And I love this. I love the look of these barrels. There's like a grey on these barrels that we're seeing here. Is that coming from the same thing that was happening on the side of the warehouse? Just the alcohol getting in, or is it the camera, or is everything grey? Like what am I seeing here?
Okay, since this is underground cellar, all the electrical fittings, including the light, is flame proof. So this is one of the reason it is, the color is much different compared to the upper warehouse.
So yeah, so it's a visual thing that I'm seeing is just through the lighting and that sort of thing.
Correct.
Yeah. So I mean, like these casks we're looking at now, these are the cream of the crop. These are the ones that are going to make the select cask moving forward, and the special editions and those sorts of things. And
Yes,
can I see? Sorry, go on.
No, please go ahead.
I was just getting the other thing I was going to say. Is it about 5 high? Is that as tall as they go? Is that?
Yes, the warehouse is just 5 meters height. So we have just 5 tiers. Inside this warehouse, I've got close to 4,000 casks. I have virgin oak, I have ex-bourbon casks, I have Portuguese wine casks, I have Spanish wine casks, I have French oak. So all the innovation and experiment happens inside this warehouse.
And are they mainly American standard size, or do you have?
No, I have barrels, I have hogsheads, and I have butts.
I think Pankaj has just stepped into the warehouse and lost reception a little bit, which tends to happen. So they're in underground warehouses. But one of the practical things is with so many casks and such big warehouses, how often do you go and sample barrels? Is it done by time? And do you have like certain areas are going to mature at certain times? But how do you manage all of that?
Scott, see, in India, we don't have a luxury of time, you see, which whiskey matures rapidly. So every 6 months, we have to taste the cask. Means today, if I taste one particular cask, after 6 months, I have to revisit, so that's all we have. When it comes to Scotland or, distilleries that are situated in polar regions, they have luxury of time. They have enough time to go back and check the liquid again and again. Wherein, we have just 6 months. Every 6 months, whiskey changes.
And I mean, you must have a team of people or something to do that. Surely, I've had a drink with you, Michael, and I know you can drink very well, but that's too much for one man, surely.
So I mean, we have we have a team of a couple of guys, all youngsters. Quite often we join together and do tasting. Today, I had close to 70 samples from different casks to be sampled, and this is all we do.
I think there's some envious people.
It's a question that varies massively between different blenders that I've spoken to over the years. What ABV do you nose at when you're doing analysis?
I do at cask strength, close to 60%. And as you said, different blenders do it differently. I don't add water. I prefer it neat. I don't swallow, of course. I spit it out. So Some people prefer to add, some water.
Yeah, I think it was
So,
Richard Patterson that was saying that he tasted at 20%, I think, ABV, which I thought.
so I've seen people doing differently.
Yeah.
So
How you can how you analyze at that level is beyond me. But I mean, it prevents palate fatigue, I presume, but I could never be analyzing at that level.
you mean at 60%?
Both, to be honest. I think.
Just finally on this warehouse, it looks quite full at the moment,
Yes.
and you mentioned that there's only one underground warehouse. So, is it very much when one cask gets bottled, another one goes in, and do you have a choosing process of what goes into the underground warehouse, or is it just when you have a space you find a space for something?
No, once these casks were kept almost 8 years ago. So, given the fact that I'm using the whiskies only for the special releases, at least the liquid sits there for not less than 5 to 6 years. So it has been emptied twice. You can see P2 there. That signifies it is filled for the second time. P2.
All right. And does OL mean Oloroso?
Oloroso. You're right.
Excellent. I think whenever we finish up tonight, I think Pankaj needs a drink on me for his excellent camera work he's doing down there. He's reading that very well.
Yeah, he can show you a couple of Portuguese wine casks like Tawny Port. Next to this, yeah, those are the Tawny Port casks. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately,
in my head, the cask is going to be much further away, and we were going to send him on a little chase around this.
Yeah, but luckily they're close, because when you do go underground, your reception tends to disappear. So he's doing an excellent job there. Well, I think we might jump onto the fourth whiskey then, which, funnily enough, is an Oloroso cask, which would have come from a cask similar to that one there. This is a relatively new addition to the Select Cask range.
Yes, actually, way back, a couple of years ago, I had released single cask of Oloroso.
Yes, I remember that. It was gorgeous.
Yes,
I only got one bottle.
This time, this has been added to the Select Cask range. So we have two finishes here. One is Pedro Jimenez and the other one is Oloroso. Today we are tasting Oloroso. Okay, so very reason we have bottled this as Oloroso and PX because our casks are not from Jerez. So this cannot be classified as sherry finish. Our casks are from the region called Montilla. So this is one of the reasons we have bottled this as Oloroso finish.
Okay. Yep. Just yeah.
So this sorry, please.
No. You go.
Okay, this is a 7-year-old whiskey, 5 years in ex-bourbon cask that was matured on the upper warehouse. Another 2 years inside Oloroso hogshead in the underground cellar.
The nuttiness and the dryness of the Oloroso casks really brings that peanut nose to the fore. Like there's big fruit. There's lots of those classic sherry notes, but I'm getting it's still Paul John. It's still very classic Paul John whiskey. And I think for me at least, exactly. that peanut oil that's coming through, I think is heightened.
Correct. It's lot of you get a lot of dry fruits like dry figs, dry dates, dry resin, apricot. It's more spicier. It has got a lot of nutmeg. It has got dark chocolate. It has got coffee mocha.
Yeah, definitely lots of that mocha sort of element. So, this is at 48% as the PX finish is at 48%.
Correct.
What was it about that particular percentage? I mean, because after 8 years, you're not far from 48%, presumably.
Okay. So now recently, as per the FSSAI regulations, except in Goa, the rest of the states can sell only up to 50% ABV, not beyond 50%. So in order to make it available throughout the country, we had to bring the alcohol content to 48.
Yeah. I do recall the single cask we did together many years ago, which was at very high. It was all good, and then it got to the docks, and no one wanted to put it on a boat because the alcohol was too high. So it was quite delayed after a while, but we got there in the end. I just saw some P3 and some P4 casks there sitting on the other side. So they're third and fourth fill barrels that are sitting away, being very quiet, maturing whiskey.
Correct.
Yeah.
And also, when Pankaj, if possible, you can show the vintage card. I mean, vintage and Madeira.
Just on while Pankaj is getting the yellow, seems to be a colour. I can see that your background, Michael, there is yellow, and the gorgeous reception area that we went through was yellow as well. Is that a bit of a house colour?
Not really. I mean, it's Goa used to be a Portuguese colony, so most of the traditional houses that you see has this particular color.
So are these some of the vintage casks?
Pankaj, you have to go a little further. Yeah, you have yes,
beautiful.
You have Madeira and vintage port.
So are these finishes as well, working at the moment, maturing at the moment?
Yes, I mean, we would be releasing some of these liquids by end of this year or early next year.
And I mean, you just mentioned about Goas have a lot of Portuguese influence. Is that something you're mindful of when looking at things like Madeira casks?
Not really. Honestly speaking, as of now, we are producing as per the market demand. Of course, I mean when we release, definitely we have great stories to tell. But other than that, it's because of the market demand.
Yeah, awesome.
How good is this whiskey?
I'm a big fan of this. As I mentioned, this is the first time I've tried this is the only other one apart from Nirvana I hadn't tried before. And again, I was very careful in being very restrained and not trying this. But it's got everything I love about Paul John, that oiliness, that nuttiness, that richness of the spirit. But that palate for me is so fruity and rich and just gorgeous.
It's rich, but it remains dry. And I think that's
the
one thing. And actually, I was very pleasantly surprised by the PX for exactly the same reason. Typically you put PX on a bottle in Australia and people think big, luscious Christmas cake and sweet, and it pleasantly has a really nice dryness to it at the same time. It balances out really smoothly.
Yeah, because we are talking about 7-year-old Indian whiskey, which is equivalent to 30-year-old Scotch, in terms of the flavor extraction. So over a period of time, this is what happens. If you leave the whiskey to mature in the same cask for a longer time.
There's a comment on YouTube coming in from someone called Results Now In. They said, "Can you take us to the top secret section?" I think we just saw the top secret section with the Madeira cast. I think that was it. So watch this space in terms of releases. And one of the great things about Indian whiskies, if Scotland or America announces something really special and cool, it takes 12 months for it to get to us. It's a lot quicker. Special releases coming from India to Australia. We're a lot closer.
and quicker to innovate in that sense.
Yeah, well, and there's so many similarities between what we're doing in Australia and what's happening in India in terms of just climate and innovation and the way we do things, the way we think about things. It makes a huge amount of sense to talk. But look, that was a gorgeous whiskey. Maybe let's move on to number 4, because I am wary that I can sit here and drink all night, but Michael and the other people at Porsche probably need to go back to work at some point. Number 4, we might get into just a hint of peat with the with the edited, I think.
Edited, yeah.
Yes. Okay, the next 3 whiskies are peated. To start with, edited is with a hint of peat. Okay. So when
sorry, Michael. Just to interrupt, this is a gorgeous room, and that's obviously the inside of a barrel there that Pankaj is talking about. If just swing back around to looks at the dance floor. Oh, if you haven't had parties there, I guarantee as soon as the borders open up, the Australians will come and have parties there for you.
Why not?
Oh, gorgeous. And you can see the awards. You've almost run out of wall there for the awards. You're going to need to build another wall to put your plaques on. Oh, gorgeous. Yeah, sorry. Thank you very much. Sorry, Michael. Sorry to interrupt.
No worries. When it comes to flagships, I explained to you we have 3 expressions. Brilliance was unpeated. This is edited with a hint of peat. And the next one is bold, which is completely peated. So basically, we have made whiskies for all the palates. When it comes to India, as per the Indian palate, not many people, people prefer sweet, elegant, easy drinkable whiskies. This is one of the reasons people prefer blended whiskies. For them, we had Brilliance. Some people don't like peat at all, but they would like to try. For them, we made edited. This kind of an entry-level peated whiskey. Again, bottled at 46% from the ex-bourbon first and second fills. The Ppm level, again, I remember I think especially in Australia, people are more interested to know about the Ppm level. And every time, I used to go for the tasting and they used to ask about the Ppm. I think they're big fans of Ppm. Talking about the Ppm, it's less than 10 Ppm.
And Michael, where does the peat come from?
Okay, in India, we don't get peat, so we source peat from Scotland. Initially, we were sourcing from 2 different regions, some from Isla, the rest from Highland. So now the 100% of the peat is coming from Highland, from Aberdeen. So we import peat. Yeah, please go ahead.
No, so you, as you just said, you import peat.
Yes.
And does customs not throw a red flag at importing earth and mud?
No, I mean, it takes a lot of time. It takes close to 3 months to get the peat in because it has to go through quarantine and there are process for this. So even sometimes they propose for the fumigation also, which we avoid. So during this time, most of the intense medicinal character is evaporated. So this is one of the reasons our whiskies are more rounder in character. I'm talking about the peated whiskies. So we lose out on that medicinal character. So it becomes more rounder and more richer. We are able to showcase our core Paul John characteristics even in our peated whiskies, because you don't have that intense, the sharp character that you get from the peat.
Yeah, which I think that concept's amazing because we look at it in Australia, we have people who do very heavily peated whiskies, and we do have peat in Australia, but people don't it doesn't hold as much. And so people import peated barley from Scotland. And, we were at a Japanese tasting earlier tonight in our Asian night with Chichibu, and they import peated barley. But you import the peat and use your own 6-row barley, so it's still inherently Indian. You still got all that texture and all the troubles you need to go through to work with 6-row barley, just using that peat. So there's really, when it comes to the Paul John peated range, there's nothing like it in the world, because you guys are the only ones doing this method.
Right. See, the bottle says Paul John Indian single malt. So we have to use 100% Indian ingredients. Of course, the peat is imported from Scotland. We don't consider that as an ingredient. So, so we import peat, then the kilning is done in India.
Yeah, and so, like, do you have a facility to infuse the peat, or how do you infuse this Scottish peat once it lands into your barley?
Okay, once the germination is over, during the kilning time, we, instead of hot air, we burn peat. But this happens at the malting maltery, not here. We don't have the facility.
No, but so you have a deal with them. You drop the peat off. Then when they're making Paul John grade barley, malted barley, then they put that process in.
Correct. We source our own grain and peat, and it is given to the malting company for the processing.
Yeah.
And do you have separate stills for the peated runs? Because then it's sort of, the flavour lasts quite a long time in that copper, doesn't it? So do you have a sort of a long clean out process where you do a period of peat and then the rest of the year non?
Okay. So if you see the total production, 40% is peated, 60% is unpeated. And the peated grain process happens during the winter season. That is starting from November, December, Jan, and February. Okay, because if you process the peat during the summer, you tend to evaporate a lot of moisture and also the flavor. So in order to retain the moisture and the phenols, we like to process during the winter season. So for the four continuous months, we distill peated whiskies, and rest of the time we do unpeated.
Interesting.
Pankaj, mate, you're an artist. That was beautiful, that camera shot you just got there. Whatever they're paying you, whatever they're paying you, it's simply not enough.
This is the third warehouse. Again, I have 6,200 casks here as well. Also, we have got some Oloroso hogsheads in it.
So
he's
taken a right turn here, Pankaj, to sort of get to the end of the warehouse. So do you see, like in America, differences between barrels that are on these edge where we can see there's a bit of light, a bit of sun coming on them, as opposed to barrels that maybe are in the middle? Does that play a role at all?
See, for us, I mean, if you see all the 6,200 casks that are here contains different liquid, so it is very hard to, analyze whether the light is, altering the whiskey or not, So, so different season, different kind of temperature, and whiskey liquid also behaves differently. So it's hard to understand.
Do you measure at all the temperatures? Do you have sensors in the warehouse to say, okay, maybe closer to the wall is hotter than further in, or vice versa?
Yes, I mean, we have the sense. I mean, not the sensors. We have thermometers kept across the warehouse. The bottommost tier has got the lowest temperature, wherein topmost tier, as you go higher, the temperature is also higher. So if you see the flavor profile, average flavor profile from the bottommost tier, we get more citrus notes, more floral notes, As you go higher, it becomes fruitier, more chocolatey, and also more woodier or vanillic on top of the warehouse.
Fascinating. We might move on to the sixth whiskey tonight, which is going to be the Bold, I believe.
Yes.
Which from memory used to be exclusively Isla Peat. Is that correct?
Yes, it used to be Isla Peat, but the one you're tasting is again from the island. We have stopped using Isla Peat recently. This is the third flagship expression after edited. Again, bottled at 46%, non-chill filtered from the ex-bourbon cask. The age is between 5 to 6 years. This is 100% peated whiskey, made using Highland peat. On the nose, again, it is very malty. It's unlike the other peated whiskeys. It's a lot of honey. You have a lot of minerally notes. It's more saltier than the other expressions, if you see.
Yeah, I mean, I know this for a fact because we've done this tasting before here at the Oak Barrel, but this could come from anywhere. This peated whiskey could be from anywhere in the world.
Mm-hmm. So due to the less intensity of phenols, the whiskey tend to showcase the other barrel characters as well. It is fruitier, it is vanillaic, it is chocolatey, it is nuttier. You have a lot of peanut in this.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, this has been a classic for a long time. The Bold, just on this. We're going through 7 tonight, and there's more to strings to your bow that you release. In terms of the Paul John, the single malt release, putting the blends aside for a second, how much percentage of Paul John's single malt in the warehouses we're looking at right now is exported as opposed to sold domestically?
Okay, when we started initially, for the first 3 years, we were just exporting. We were not selling anything in India. We started selling in India in 2015 with few markets. Then it was close to 80% exports and 20% in India. Gradually, now today, if you see, we are doing 50-50. We are selling a lot of whiskey in India.
Yeah.
So 50% is exported, 50% is sold in domestic markets.
Yeah, I do recall a very good friend of mine who I used to work with who moved to India for work, who now lives back in Australia. But every time he would come back once a year, he would buy up Paul John because he couldn't get it in India.
Okay.
He was responsible for drinking it quite a bit. That was fantastic. Seeing those warehouses, that was brilliant. I'm like walking through and seeing and looking at the barrels and then sort of having Michael yourself talk around them. How it's like that is whiskey nerd 101 for me. That is one of the great joys in life is to do that. And I'm currently not allowed to leave from 5 kilometers from where I am, and walking through whiskey warehouses, whether Australian or Scottish or Indian or American or wherever, is one of the great joys. So, Milne, I want to direct this question to you while we're still on the Bold. This for me, from a pure retailer point of view, this is a whiskey that would do very well in Australia because Australians tend to like the big flavors. Historically with whiskey, we're not so much on the delicate side of things. We like the big flavors. What does Australia drink from Paul John point of view?
It's funny you ask. It is definitely for the large amount of time that I've been working on the brand, we've just had the core 3, so Brilliance edited Bold until very recently, and classic and peated select cask as well. But bold has definitely been it's sort of, I think you can tell the seasonality where people drink more peated whiskey. Looking at bold, it definitely spikes far into winter, and we get a real surge of volume into winter, and Brilliance surges into summer a bit more, and you can sort of see that kind of change of drinking styles, as it were. But yeah, it's on most brands, when you look at a sort of wider portfolio of whiskey, you generally see your unpeated malts being the more volume, as it were, from a brand, and it's a really interesting split between bold being actually one of the highest performing SKUs in the range.
Yeah, well, I think it's great, and Pankaj, it's great to see your face, mate. You've done exceptional work. Might just need to hit the button so we can hear you.
Oh, yeah, thank you, Scott.
I think
It was a pleasure.
can't hear you.
It was a pleasure walking around the warehouse. Maybe slightly tipsy right now with all the walks in the warehouses and the cellars. So.
Well, we've got one whiskey to go in this tasting tonight. We're going to get into the peated classic cask, but Pankaj, I assure you, if you ever make your way to Sydney, or if I ever make my way to that beautiful reception room you're in right now, we'll definitely get you tipsy on that. So we'll move on to the select cask peated, which is our finale for tonight. So the difference between this and the edited, is it just a higher proof version, or what's going on here, Michael?
Okay. The for edited and bold, which is a flagship expressions. For the flagship expressions, I always use whiskies that are in between 5 to 6 years and from different fills, that is first and second. Whereas peated select cask, it is always first fill and around 7 years of age.
Sorry, Michael, to interrupt there. Talk me through. Is that a painting commission? Yeah, I was trying to find out the correct question to ask to that one. Was it something you guys commissioned? Does it mean something, or like mural?
Yes, I mean it depicts the Goan festival. We have many paintings across the warehouse. The visitor center. We had hired a couple of local artists to come and paint for us. So you would see a lot of paintings across. So this is another one.
Key things on the table.
Yeah.
And what's the festival for?
We have a lot of festivals happening in India. I mean, every now and then we have festivals here. So we have Goan Carnival, we have Goan Independence Day. We celebrate everything. I mean, we have a lot of sayings here. So we celebrate a lot of religious festivals. So it goes on.
Yeah.
I'm loving the imagery around it. It's not necessarily like, I don't dress that well, but that could be a portrait of myself or Milne in the barrel house there. But
once we get that haircut, we'll be fine. I think that'll be us. Easy.
So you just on the select cask peated, as Pankaj takes us through this exceptional tour, which we can't do at the moment, which is, I'm so thankful that we can do this virtually. This is the peak of the peated line, essentially, and like Michael, based on something you said before in terms of the Indian market of liking that lighter, sweeter sort of style, do the peated lines, and particularly this one, the top of the peated line, as Michael has disappeared for a second, we'll get him back as soon as we can. as we look through the various awards. So Pankaj, can you hear me, Pankaj?
Yeah, I'm with you, Scott.
Yeah, great, mate. So until Michael comes back, you're in charge of this now, mate. So what's your favorite Paul John whiskey? What's your favorite expression?
Oh, expression that's been bottled. I love the bold. That's something that I managed to get from the cask. There are plenty of them. I'm really excited to see if we have one of our Spanish wine finished peated whiskey. So I'm personally looking at that. So as of now, that's bottled. I would say bold because I love to smoke. I love to eat ice creams as well. So bold goes well with anything and everything that I do. So there you have it.
That's a really interesting pairing, bold and ice cream. It totally makes sense, but I would never have thought of it.
So I get a lot of my mates who don't drink whiskey, so I get them to have it in ice cream, you know. Next time you're at my place, I offer you ice cream. You know what?
Know that we're going to get drunk on ice cream. It seems
That's good. No, I love that. I love that innovation and that concept of, you know, there's a whiskey for everyone. It might be on ice cream. It might be, you know, something else, but, you know, you're doing an exceptional job there, converting people to the whiskey cause. But if I could throw the question back to Michael, just back on the select cask peated, you know, is this something you like export, or is this a domestic market? Like, what is the domestic market thirst for peated Indian whiskey?
Okay, when it comes to select cask, Scott, which is bottled at 55%, you know, 90% is for exports because this is bottled at 55%. Other than in Goa, we are not able to sell anywhere else. So, so this is only sold in Goa, and rest is exported.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Fair enough. Fair enough. Look, we asked you for an hour, and we've gone for an hour and 14 minutes, so 15 minutes longer than we should have. I want to do a quick thank you to both yourself, Michael, and to Pankaj and to Gopi, who is I'm sure is watching in the background. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I've loved every second of tonight to see this, to places that I can't go to right now and see the deep dive into the warehouse. It's been a really, I've had so much fun. I don't know if anyone else has enjoyed themselves, but I've had a lot of fun.
It was a pleasure joining you all, Scott and Andy. Always a pleasure. Look forward to catch up again.
Definitely. I'm throwing it out there. No one's approved this, but I'm going to throw it out there. But if enough people, you know, buy Indian whiskey, drink Indian whiskey, enjoy it, share it. If enough do that from the oak barrel, then, you know, if you like him that much and you all buy lots and lots of Paul John from him, then I might send him to the distillery when we're allowed to. So it's up to you now to decide whether you like Scott enough, whether you want to see him enjoy himself or not.
That's going to be a failure because I want to bring people with me. Let's get together. Let's do some tastings, and let's bring a team of oak barrel customers and Indian whiskey lovers from Sydney to India when we can and safely, and we'll come through. And I can see that Pankaj is already setting it up with all the beers in front of him. Oh no, I thought they were beers with the white tops. So that was froth, but Pankaj. But okay. But look, Michael, I know you're a very busy man, as we all know, and you're a very important man. Really, from the bottom of my heart, appreciate you taking the time to, as another very important phone call comes through, taking the time to spend the time with us. For Gopi, for setting this all up, and Pankaj, I don't know how to quite do this, but I'm sure Milne can. There'll be a drink at the house bar. It's on us. Milne is going to sort it out. You've been exceptional in your tour, guys, tonight, and it's about time you took a seat because you've been standing up for a little while now.
Thank you. It was a pleasure walking around, and I hope to see all of you here in Goa soon.
Sure.
We would love it. And apparently Andy Milne's going to bring a charter plane full of Sydney siders and Australians. If we can get there, we'll all come and say g'day. On some, on some things like all of these whiskies are available, through the Oak Barrel, but through wherever you want to buy them from. They're all in Australia. They present exceptional value for what they are. And I think it's hard to understate how good they are and what they do. And it's such a pleasure to be such a close neighbour to a country like India and share secrets across our whiskies like that. And to have the experience of these sorts of people behind us. So to Michael, to Pankaj, to Gops, we might close off the live stream in a second now, but thank you so much. And most importantly, as we all are in these troubling times, let's stay safe. Let's stay safe. Let's do the right thing. Let's try and get everyone vaccinated. Let's try and, do everything right so that we can open back up and get to drinking whiskey again, whether it's in Sydney or in Christchurch or in Goa. We'll make it happen again. So thank you. I really, really appreciate it. You brought a lot of joy to some lockdown people in Sydney and the rest of Australia tonight.
Thanks, Scott.
Thank you. Thanks, Scott.
Stay safe.
Thank you, Andy. Thanks, Michael, Pankaj. Bye.